Okay. Uh Welcome to Classic Gun Talk. I'm your host, NightStryke. Normally I have a panel here, but nobody has showed up. I sent tons of links out, nobody showed up. Tonight we're going to be talking about this rifle, the M1 Carbine. Wait a minute. No, that's not right. That's not right. I mean, that's part of the rifle, but that's not the right one. Here, let me see. Let me see if I can get the right one up. There. We're going to be talking about this rifle. Let's see if I can zoom in. No, the zoom in is not working either. All right. So we're talking about this rifle. Okay. Anyways, we're talking about this rifle, the M1 Carbine, and its variants. And the variants run deep. There are a couple variants. This time, there are enough variants I can go over that I don't have to worry about forgetting one or missing one because there's there's not an infinitesimal number of them. Okay, so we're talking about the M1 Carbine tonight. So let me go over the history of the M1 Carbine. Uh, you saw the other rifle before earlier, but let's see if I can bring up this. The reason why I showed that rifle was because let's see, hide that. Because that's the takedown version. That's actually the Winchester model 1905. And the reason why I'm showing this instead of the M1 Carbine right now is because the trigger group and technically the magazine are where the M1 Carbine started. Okay, that's where they got the trigger group from. Now, for those that have seen the movie, they would know that Carbine Williams had a hand in the making of this rifle. But the thing is, yes, he had a hand in it, but he wasn't the only man that made the M1 Carbine. Okay, the M1 Carbine starts off before the 1905. It starts out with Jonathan Ed Browning, the brother of John Moses Browning. Okay, he was trying to create the M2 rifle, which was a 30-06 a self-loading rifle, so semi-auto rifle, more or less. He had a couple designs of it. If you want to see those rifles, Forgotten Weapons, Ian on Forgotten Weapons did a video on Ed Browning's self-loading rifles that were submitted to the United States military for testing. And the military likes some of them, but they wanted it to be lighter and lighter. And the problem is John Ed Browning. He was known as Ed Browning. He got into an agreement with Winchester to develop this rifle for the United States government, and then Ed Browning died in 1939 because this is in 1938. Okay, so he signed an agreement with Winchester to make this M2 rifle, and he died in 1939. He had a decent rifle concept. It was in 30-06, but the government wanted, the government then contracted, on the government. let me back up here. Winchester hired Carbine Williams to help them with the project after Ed Browning died. And this is he was doing this while he was serving a sentence at a North Carolina minimum security work farm, basically prison. And and after his release, Winchester hired him on the strength of recommendations of firearm industries leaders, and hoped Williams could complete the various designs left unfinished by Ed Browning. Okay, including the Winchester 30-06 M2 rifle, which eventually became the M1 Carbine. But we're gonna get to that. So we're going deep down the rabbit hole in this one. So be aware. If you have any questions, do go at NightStryke, or you know how to get a hold of me. Anyways, but make them questions about the M1 Carbine, please. All right. Now, let's see. Okay. Now, Williams had been working on a short stroke piston in the existing design, and included it in the design of this 30-06 M2 rifle. Okay, the you know, the Marine Corps had rifle trials in 1940. Browning's rear locking tilting bolt design proved unreliable in sandy conditions. So Williams went back to the drawing board for Winchester and redesigned the M2 to incorporate a Garand style rotating bolt and operating slide. Okay, and but he kept the short stroke piston idea that he came up with, which was actually very ingenuitive. His short stroke piston idea was pretty good. Okay, and by doing so, he shaved about the rifle's weight from 9.5 pounds to about 7.5 pounds. So there's that. All right. The U.S. Ordnance found unsatisfactory the first series of prototype carbines submitted by several firearms companies and some independent designers. Winchester had contacted the Ordnance Department to examine their M2 rifle design. Major Renee Studler of Ordnance believed that the rifle design could be scaled down to a carbine. Yes, carbine, not carbine. We'll get to that. We'll get to that, DJ Planas. Let me finish this part. Okay. Yes. The the carbine, which would weigh 4.5 pounds to 4.75 pounds, and demanded a prototype as soon as possible. The first model was developed at Winchester in 13 days by William C. Romer, Fred Humiston, and 3 other Winchester engineers. So there were a couple other people, and they were under the supervision of Edwin Pugsley. Okay, them and Carbine Williams contributed to the making of the M1 carbine. It wasn't just Carbine Williams, but because of the movie, everybody attributes it to Carbine Williams solely. But he was part of a team, whether he wanted to be part of the team or not. He was there. He contributed. Now, DJ Plainice asks, why was he in jail? Well, Carbine Williams was in jail prior to making the M1 carbine because he had shot, I believe he shot the sheriff, or was it a deputy? He shot someone. Let's see. Yes, he shot a deputy. I believe his name was Alfred Jackson Pate. There was a disagreement over Williams because Williams was from North Carolina, and I guess he was operating a moonshining still that was illegal at that time. And the deputy came out to talk to him about it and possibly go and arrest him for it. And then he shot the deputy, and then he got arrested, and then he went to prison for it, and then he got released for good behavior and working on this carbine for the government. So, but he served some time in the in prison for this. So anyways, they got him. This guy, Carbine Williams, okay? His name is David Marshall Williams. But the thing is, they call him Carbine Williams as a nickname. Anyways, that's why he went to prison, and that's why, because he shot the deputy instead of, shooting the sheriff. That's why. Anyways, again, in night, let's see, let's say, let's see. Williams' last version of the 30-06 was the M2 scaled down to 30 self-loading cartridge. which eventually everybody began to call 30 carbine after this rifle, the M1 carbine. The Patrick prototype was cobbled together using the trigger housing and lock work of a Winchester 1905. And you notice here how I have this rifle right here. That's the Winchester 1905. And that's the trigger group of the Winchester 1905. Does it look familiar? It should, because let me go over a couple pictures. Look at the trigger group of the M1 carbine. Very similar. That's where they got it from. That's where they got it from. So this is the M1 carbine in all its parts. So I just wanted to show that. Anyways, all right. So, yep. All right. Moving on. I'm trying to get my notes back up here so we can keep going. All right. After they did that, the prototype was an immediate hit with the Army observers. After initial Army testing in 1941, the Winchester design team set out to develop a more refined version. Williams participated in finishing of this prototype. The second prototype competed successfully against all remaining carbine candidates in September 1941, and Winchester was notified of their success the next month. Standardization as the M1 carbine was approved on October 22nd, 1941. The story, and again, this story was the loose base. It was the whole story of Carbine Williams, was the basis for the 1952 movie Carbine Williams. And again, if you can go look that up, but you don't have to. So, all right. Let's see. Okay. Now, but the thing is, Williams didn't, other than contributing the short stroke piston and rotating bolt design, other than that, he really didn't contribute much else to the rifle. And he worked on his own design apart from the other Winchester staff, but it was not ready for testing until December 1941. And well, we knew what happened then. Anyways, 2 months after the Winchester M1 carbine had been adopted and typed classified, a Winchester supervisor, Edwin Pugsley, conceded that Williams' final design was an advance on the one that was accepted, but noted Williams' decision to go it alone was a distinct impediment to the project, and Williams' additional design features were not incorporated into M1 production. In a 1951 memo written in fear of a patent infringement lawsuit by Williams, Winchester noted that his patent for the short stroke piston may have been improperly granted, as a previous patent covering the same principle of operation was overlooked by the patent office. Who knew? Either way, but again, the designers weren't just David Marshall Williams. They were him, William C. Romer, they were Fred Humiston, Cliff Warner, and 3 other Winchester engineers, along with Edwin Pugsley himself as the supervisor. So, and again, ideas were taken from the modified Winchester M2 Browning rifle, the Williams gas system, the Winchester 1905 trigger pack, and the M1 Garand. And apparently, also properties of a percussion shotgun in Pugsley's collection: hook and breech and barrel band assembly, disassembly. Okay, all right. So there's that, and I've got notes that I'm reading off of right now, so everyone knows that's in the. So let's go over some of the specs. Okay, the M1 carbine is about empty. It's about 5.2 pounds. Okay, loaded about 5.8 with the sling. Okay, the length of the rifle in total is about 35.6 inches. The barrel length is 17.75 inches. Okay. And we all know it's in 30 carbine. It's a gas operated short stroke piston rotating bolt. Okay. We don't need to. It's a semi-auto rifle, so we don't need to know the rate of fire. They say the effective firing range, is 300 yards on this rifle. I think you could get a little bit more out of it, but only if you had like a scope or something. So, originally they were issued with 15 round box magazines. Now, you see the 30 round magazines. We will get to the 30 round magazines. Okay, they're there. They're part of it, but they weren't. I don't think they were there during World War II. So they might have been there towards the end of the war, but yeah, they were just using the 15 round mags during World War II. So, uh, ooh, that's nice, Mr. Alaska 556. Firefighter says sent you some carbine shots for B-roll. Okay, I'll show that later at the end. All right. Now, let me go over everything else. Because there's a couple things I need to go over. I need to get some pictures. So give me un momento. Uh, let's see. All right. There's that. And I need a picture. Let's see. Image and there. All right. Um, I'm getting some of the accessories because we're gonna talk about variants in a second. And I wish other people had jumped in, but it's fine. So I'll show you how they. There we go. All right. All right. So there's those images now. Okay. So of the variants of the M1 carbine, there are a couple variants. Now, these aren't all of them, but these are primarily you have the standard M1 carbine variant, which the early models of the M1 carbine had a push button style a selector, or not selector, but well, it was push button style safety. And the problem is they also have a push button style magazine release. And the problem is soldiers kept pushing the safety instead of the magazine release. And they switched out the push button safety for a flip safety instead. Later on during the war. Now, they also had a grenade launcher variant. You can see that there's a thing on the end of the grenade launcher. Okay, and they use the M8. It uses the M8 grenades. No, it's the M8 grenade launcher, and it used the standard grenades that they were using on the M1 Garand. Same grenades, but the issue is instead of doing or launching grenades with the M1 carbine like you would the M1 Garand, you had to put the M1 carbine sideways in order to launch the grenade, because if you did it straight like the Garand, you risked breaking the stock. So there's that issue. Now, that suppressed M1 carbine, that's a British version. That's not an issue because the United States ever never produced that. That's what the British did with the ones we gave them. Now the M1A1, that's the paratrooper style. And even though the M1A3 is listed, uh, there's no actual reports of them ever issuing them. They may have pictures of them because unlike the M1A1 where the M1A1 was a side folding stock paratrooper stock, the M1A3 was an underfolder paratrooper stock, and it was great. But the problem was there's no reports of them actually ever issuing them. Now there's also the A2, which is basically just an improved version of the M1 carbine where they just improved the rear sights. I mean, that's really all they did. Uh, let's see. Let me go to the variants. All right. All right. So, uh, you know, that's it. That's it on the M1 carbine. Okay. Now, of the accessories they had a couple of accessories, and I'm going to show you some of the accessories now. So, give me a minute. Now, window. I'm switching out the images. All right. Okay. There we go. This is the flash hider that you would, basically screw onto the end of the barrel of an M1 carbine or the M2 carbine or the M3 carbine. And we're going to get to those variants in a second. Okay. So this would be the flash hider. They made a larger version like this for the M1 Grand. You saw that on I believe the models, the M1 Grand, the Grand M1C, because the D used a different style of flash hider. Anyways, so this is the flash hider. Now, the grenade launcher that I mentioned earlier is this one. Shoot, screen. Let's see. Grenade launcher. All right. This is the grenade launcher. Let's see. There you go. And it screwed on as well. And basically, you'd put the grenade on top of that. You'd shoot blanks, or rounds specifically for grenade firing out of the rifle. Now, if you want to see how it attaches to the end of the barrel, that would be how it would attach to the end of the barrel. You just screw it on. So there's that. Now, okay. So there's some of the attachments. There's some of the variants. Let's go down the rabbit hole now. I mentioned the M1 and the M2 the M3 and the M2 carbine. Okay. Now, the thing about it is, the M2 carbine was basically, let's see if I got a picture of it. Let's see. Yeah, right here. I am switching out my screen sharing to the M2 carbine. Right. Here's the M2 carbine. Now, that little notch on the left side of the receiver is basically how you would switch it from semi-auto to full auto. The M2 carbine and the M3 carbine came about as a way for the government to get a cheaper version of a cheaper submachine gun like the Thompson. And that's how the M2 came about. I mean, they had the grease gun, and the grease gun was, really cheap to make too, but they also had the M2. And the M2 basically was introduced towards the end of the war. Okay. The M2 they didn't make a lot of them, but let's see. The M2. They made a decent amount of them. Not they didn't make. Let's put it this way. Uh, Compared to how many M1 carbines were made, they made a decent chunk of M2s. About 600,000 were produced. They were select fire. They used the M2s used either the 15 or the 30 round magazines. And in this picture, you can see the 30 round magazines. And that is a pre 86. No, this is from a museum image. So this was in a museum. So, the museums are exempt from that 86 thing. But if you had gotten an M2 before 86 and registered it, yes, it would have been, you would have had paperwork for pre 86. But anyways, they introduced the M2 around in 1944 towards the end of the war. But there's just a couple extra parts inside of the trigger pack and on that notch right there. That's the only difference of the M1 carbine. So, and don't even ask about converting an M1 to an M2 carbine. Is it possible? Maybe. I don't know. But not without considerable modification. I wouldn't try it. I would not try it. It's you have to do too much for it. Now, I mentioned the M3, okay? And here's where they get a little froggy, okay? And the reason I say they're getting froggy is here's the M3 with the battery pack backpack. And if you're going to say, good Lord, that thing is ridiculous. Yes, it was intended to be ridiculous because the M3 came about towards the Korean War. And the M3 was select fire as well. You do semi-automatic or fully automatic. But the M3 also had, as you see, it has the flash hider. And it has this ridiculous monstrosity. The thing on the top, above the scope, is the night vision. The thing that scope is a scope that was able to use the night vision attachment to basically use this in the dark and in low light environments. So yes, by the Korean War, the M3 carbine was a night vision sniper rifle. And that's ridiculous because look at all you need in order to run that. But again, that's the M3. So, is it infrared? No, I think it was night vision. Infrared is too new for that. I think it was night vision. I'm sure it was night vision. So, no, you're right. You're right. It was night vision and infrared. So there you go. Scott actually helps. So, anyways, that's the M3. Now, another thing about the M1 carbine and the M2 and M3 carbine variants is it didn't have a last round bolt hold open. Basically, if you want to hold the bolt open, there's a button on the charging handle. When you pull it back to a certain point, you press that button, and it holds the bolt open manually. So that's something that was weird about the M1 carbine. Now, there's also the selector issue where earlier selectors were push button, later ones were switch, just so they didn't have to worry about pressing the wrong button, taking the magazine out. Not that bothers mine, because mine is one that has a push button. I can't show you mine because YouTube laws and whatnot. You can't hear it. I'll let you listen to it, but let's see. You hear that rotating bolt? Let's see if I can. Yep, there you go. It's open. There you go. Let's see if I can get you. What's wrong one? There you go. I don't have a magazine, so there you go. All right, sugar stop. Anyways, so that's my M1 carbine, but that's the M1 carbine in a nutshell. Now I would have gone further than I did, but I didn't have any guests tonight, so we kind of just rammed right through this, just like Honda likes. Anyways, there's that. Again, let me show you the. I've got a whole bunch of pictures here. That's all the parts that go into the M1 carbine. Let's see. This little part right here is the gas piston. It's a very small gas piston right here. And what it does is it hits the charging handle / op rod, and the op rod moves the bolt back to eject around and load around. So there you go. And that's it. So have I shot my M1 carbine? I have. I love it. Is it the most reliable gun in the world? No. And that's just it. With the M1 carbine, there are M1 carbines that work great. There are M1 carbines that are awful. If you do that more than twice, you're playing with it. No, I'm not. Anyways, let's go over some of the manufacturers, because there's a ton of manufacturers, and we'll go over some of those. Okay. Let's see here. See. All right. So, of the manufacturers of the M1 carbine, you have war production models, and then you have post-war models. So let me go with the war production models first. All right. So, of the war production models, you have Inland Manufacturing Division, General Motors Corporation, Dayton, Ohio, and the receivers will show the lettering Inland Div, DIV, for Inland Division. Okay. Winchester will have the Winchester logo on it, on the receiver. And remember, the receiver on the M1 carbine is just like the M1 Garand. It's on the rear. It's in the rear heel. Okay. Now, there's also Underwood Elliott Fisher Company, and those receivers will say Underwood. There's also Rockola. Everybody's heard of the Rockolas, and that the Rockola Manufacturing Corporation of Chicago, Illinois, or as Rick likes to say, Chicago. They produce some. Let's see. There's Quality HMC on the receiver. That means Quality Hardware and Machine Corporation. They were also out of Chicago. They used to make a lot of shit in Chicago. There's Irwin Pedersen Arms Company, Grand Rapids, Michigan, and usually those receivers will say Irwin Pedersen. Yes, Scott's right. It is. Let's see, it's this one. Yep, it's on the rear side, underneath the rear sight. And Red Patriot says he has an M1 carbine manufactured 1943 Inland. Mine is 1943, but mine is standard products. So, and we'll get to that. We'll get to them. So, where was I? I was Irwin Pedersen. The ones people really want to get a hold of are, one of these, a National Postal Meter, because they didn't make that many of them. Or they made a decent amount. A decent amount. National Postal Meter Company Incorporated, Rochester, New York. Yes, they used to make guns in New York. How about now? There's also Commercial Controls Corporation, and they only made 239 of those. I haven't seen one on a uh, on a receiver, so I've never seen what the receiver markings are on that. Standard Products Company, Port Clinton, Ohio. That's where mine is. Oh, mine is from. It's a Standard Products. They made a decent amount. There's a Saginaw Steering Gear Division, General Motors Corporation, Saginaw, Michigan. So this one will say uh, Saginaw SG for Steering Gear Division on the receiver. No, Singer only did the 1911s. They didn't do the. I don't think they did the M1 carbines. Uh, Now there's also you'll have a different style Saginaw SG on the receiver. It'll be in a different style, and that's Saginaw Steering Gear Division, General Motors Corporation, Grand Rapids, Michigan. And then there was here's the one a lot of people want. I kind of want one of these over the National Postal Meter just because of I'm a computer guy. But did you know the company that makes computers, IBM, International Business Machines Corporation, they made M1 carbines during World War II. They made them in Poughkeepsie, Kepsi, New York. I really don't know how to say that, but anyways, they made them out of New York. Let's see. Were there any other companies? No, those are the wartime companies. Okay. Now there are tons of commercial companies that made them. I don't know if I can go over all of them, but you know, I will try. I will try and go over the post-war commercial companies because you know, post World War II, almost all of them were like only the companies I mentioned already. Some of those were contracted to make the M2s and the M3s. Okay, but all the companies I'm going to talk about after have made them in some capacity or not. So, like, you'll have, Ivor Johnson. You'll have the Universals. Springfield Armory made them at 1.2. Uh, Israel Arms made some. There were there are a bunch of companies. So, uh, the commercial companies, there was ALM Inc. out of Houston, Texas. There's Alpine Industries, AMAC out of Jacksonville, Arkansas. American Historical Foundation made some. They customized the carbines. There's Ampco. There's Arms Corps USA, Baltimore, Maryland. Auto Ordnance makes made some, and they still make them. Inland Manufacturing still makes them. New production models. Okay. Uh, of the commercial ones, there was Bullseye Gunworks. Chiappa has made 22 versions and 9mm versions, not in 30 carbine. The Crossman air guns, those air rifles, they make a M1 carbine variant too. So, Irma's Firearms Manufacturing Co. They made some. Irma Work, they made some as well. Federal Ordnance made some. Firearms International, Fulton Armory makes some. I think they still make M1 carbines, or they make new production parts for them. It depends. Fulton Armory does a lot of vintage rifle stuff. Global Arms made some. H&S, Howa made some M1 carbines from the 1960s to the 80s. As I said, Inland still makes them out of Dayton, Ohio. Israeli Arms International, III, out of Houston, Texas, made them from 96 to 2002. Like, if I'm giving you years, if they have years, they did them in 30 carbine and 22 Spitfire, which was 5.7mm Johnson. Ivor Johnson Arms, out of New Jersey and Jacksonville, Arkansas, made some. And 30 carbine, 22 long rifle, 22 Magnum rimfire, 5.7 millimeter Johnson, and 9 millimeter. Uh, I don't think I don't know. I don't think International Harvester ever made M1 carbines. They made M1 Garands, but not carbines. I am pretty sure on that one. Yeah. International Harvester made the M1 Garands, not the M1 carbines. We're talking about the carbines. So, let's see. Uh, there are a ton of other companies. As I mentioned, Universal Firearms Corps. Those are the worst M1 carbines on the market. You don't want one. You don't want one. Even if you see a cheap one, it's cheap for a reason because it doesn't work. I had looked for one, and then I looked into a Bubba M1 carbine, and you know, I just went and bought the parts and brought it back up to an M1 carbine. So, anyways, there were a ton of other companies, but if you want to know a little bit more about the M1 carbine, there's a great website called m1carbinesinc.com, and I'll tell you everything you want to know about the M1 carbine. You know, as far as parts, as far as part numbers, uh, companies, post-war companies, everything. So, anyways, that's about all I've got on the M1 carbine. Those were all the ones. Now, yes, the M1 carbine also had you could mount the bayonet to it. That's what that thing behind the front sight is. That's the bayonet. So, no, I don't think Singer made M1 carbine receivers. They made 1911s during World War One, not World War Two. See, if Singer made any M1 carbine receivers, they would have been marked Underwood with a B at the bottom. So, at the bottom of the rear of the receiver. But they didn't make many of them, just like they didn't make many 1911s. But they made so few, there's not enough for them to go around to even document. So there's that. With that, we're done. I'm done. Thank you all for coming and listening. When is the next episode? When I figure out what it's going to be. Let's see. So, as I said, there's all the list of M1 carbines. There's the M2. There's the ridiculous M3. So, there you go. If you have an old gun you'd like us to do an episode on, go ahead and send me an email, nightstrike@gmail.com. And if it's one if it's a decent classic gun, then we will do an episode on it. We got a couple more that we're going to do. It's just I'm jumping back and forth from World War II and post World War II right now. So we'll probably do something post World War II next. So stay tuned for that. With that, we'll see you guys later. Thank you all for jumping in. Uh, we had Kingpin out there. We had DJ Plain Ice. We had Woods, E Honda. We had M Gabriel. We had, who else do we have out there? New York Outcast, Mr. Knives. Scott was out there. Who else? Trying to go through it fast. Firefighter was out there. Reminds me, Firefighter sent something. Mr. Alaska 556 was out there. Who else? Two Live Moo was out there. Let's see. X Adam was out there. Going through the list. I think that was it. I mean, Thermal Redneck with the Paycheck was out there. Patriot in the Dark is out there. I have no idea how. 500 Magnum was out there. Miss anyone? I don't think I missed anyone. So, Ghost Shadow's out there. Well, I'm done. Ghost Shadow, you got here. You got here late. Got here late. So, all right. Let me get those pictures up for from Firefighter, and then we will get out of here. So, let's see. He wanted to show off. I think he wanted to show off his. Let's see. That's way too many pictures, Firefighter. He has a U.S. carbine. Which one? Where's the heel? Doesn't say. Firefighter doesn't say which company. What company made yours? You failed. Move the rear sight forward a bit so we can see the. Let's see. Hold on. I think I can see it. Oh, he's got a Winchester. Here, I'll show you guys. Let's see if it does Discord. This Discord is weird. Let's see. There's his. And you're saying, how do you know it was Winchester? Because I can see the W right there. There's only one company that made Winchesters. That made them with the W. Yeah. Let's see. He's got a rack stock on it. There you go. There's that. Do I have a picture of mine? Because I'm sure I can show a picture of mine. I just can't go and show you guys the. Let's see. I'm trying to make sure there's no dead space. Dead. Here we go. Yeah. Right, there's that. And there's that one. Share screen. Go. There we go. Window. Right there. There's mine. There's my M1 carbine right there. I love it. Looks a lot better than when I got it. Anyways, there's that. With that, we will see you guys later. So thank you all for listening. Thank you all for hanging out and commenting. And we will see you on the next one. So, shut up, be infringed. How do I turn this damn thing off?